You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since first grade, now dads reliving the Disney movies we grew up on with our own kids. I'm JB Wagner.
I'm Eddie Ferguson, and on today's episode, we read the fine print of all the old business cards we've ever picked up just to make sure we haven't been roped into anything as we review the Santa Claus. But first, JB, besides whispering into my ear, which is the most annoying thing in the world, how are you and the family doing?
I don't know that I knew that about you, that creeped you out. Oh, man.
There is a room at the Indianapolis Museum of Art that is called the Room of Whispers. And it's this huge gallery with all of these speakers hanging with people whispering things. And I didn't know this. Sarah and I went on one of our early dates to the art museum. And we walk into this room like, this is weird. What are all these things? And then all of a sudden I began to hear all this whisper and I'm like, get me out of here. And I'm like, my skin is just crawling and I'm running out of there. I hate people whispering in my ear. It's just like sends chills and I can't stand it.
Well, then I've got a great family story then for you, because this is the new phase my son is in. It can be literally just me and him just sitting on the couch playing or whatever. And I'm like, Daddy, can I have a... And then he'll stop himself and he'll come up right up to my ear and he'll go, Dad, can I have a cookie? That's the phase we're in right now where he has to get very quiet. He has to get very intent. And then he'll be like in mid-sentence, he'll say it out loud. Hey, Dad, can I have a cookie? And then he'll stop himself and then he'll creep up to me and he'll go, Dad, can I have a cookie? And that is the mode we are in with our 4-year-old son. Where he, as I've talked about on this podcast before, he loves to request a lot of things. He has a lot of requests at all times, and we have to teach him, no, you need to go do what we told you to do. But that's the new thing. We'll be in Target, and he'll go into whisper mode for something he wants to do, hoping that maybe if he makes it a secret.
Yes, this one time.
This is the one time we'll let him have treats before dinner.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what it is. I can't stand it's mouth noises, right? Like any mouth noises, and whispering kind of falls into that category. It's not as bad as dry mouth. And that's why I'm always drinking water while we're recording, because I get the slightest dry mouth. My own dry mouth begins to annoy me and become I can't do it. So whispering's in that. And there's nothing worse, honestly, than a podcast that the speaker is having dry mouth or they whisper. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, nope, done. I just turn it off. This is fascinating, interesting. I would love to have this information, but I'm not going to listen.
That's funny.
JB, did you guys watch the new Marvel TV show?
Oh, we did. They've taken over our Fridays and basically made it to where we have to spend Friday night watching whatever the Marvel series is or Star Wars series is.
And let's be clear, this new series is not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Is it because I wrote it in there wrong?
No. I'm just now noticing. No, I'm saying I thought of this as Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? And it struck me as the title card came up. I'm like, oh, it's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The
Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's get all of our articles in there.
Do we need to put some spoilers here for people that haven't seen this yet? They should scrub ahead.
Let's say spoiler free for this, and maybe we'll do what we did for WandaVision, and we'll just do a
recap of the entire
thing. Of the whole thing.
Special episode,
yeah.
Yes.
So spoiler free. What was your initial reaction?
It was a little bit different pace. Obviously, it's a completely different thing than WandaVision is. It's definitely more down the middle of the typical Marvel stuff. I noticed that they spent a lot more time. It seemed like every scene that wasn't action oriented probably was about twice as long as you would normally get in a typical Marvel cinematic film. Like it seemed like when he's in there talking with the girl in the bar, or actually that one's pretty quick, but some of the other scenes with the banker and with his sister and stuff,
the therapist,
yep. Those all kind of lasted a little bit longer than they normally do in the films, where it's, you got this pacing of like, okay, I'm going to come in, do the thing, get to where we're going, and then we're going to move on. It seemed very like they spent more time with the characters.
It's like they're letting the story breathe a little bit, where in a movie, you've got to keep at that pace and go through. Other than that, though, I felt in many ways that I was just watching another Marvel movie. It just kind of...
Especially with that opening action.
Yeah, that was a great opening sequence. That was really
the whole
cool.
Paragliding stuff, all of that was fantastic. I loved it. They even added a little bit of extra character even to his little jetpack friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was a fun little twist that we hadn't seen from his character yet. I'm very interested to see how they bring the two people together, because they are kind of living in separate spaces. I know that's not really that big of a spoiler, but
no, you do not see the Falcon or the Winter Soldier together in this first episode, which I liked. It kind of gave that time to, all right, let's establish both characters kind of separate, because we kind of know from the trailers and whatnot, this is going to end up being kind of that buddy cop type of genre, and so you need that coming together moment, that kind of clashing of the two personalities.
I'm a little sad that we are doing no spoilers, because I so badly want to talk about the last scene. The last moment from it is just, that's the biggest piece of this that brings you into, because I think if you just left with things are where they are without having some sort of a grabbing piece at the very end, there was a big one. It was a big one at the very end. So watch it all the way through to the end, because there's a big moment at the end where it's like, oh, this is what's happening. This is what's going to be the next phase of it.
No hidden scenes. We were scrubbing the credits just to make sure it's all the way to the end of the actual episode. But this, they set up a lot of stuff. Like you can just see like, okay, we're going to set this piece up. We're going to set this piece up. And you've just kind of got it all.
They were preparing the board. They were preparing the chessboard.
Yeah. Where I think, you can feel and that that's what they're doing, where maybe with WandaVision, those first 2 episodes, you were like,
what is going on?
No
idea.
They were setting up the board. There were pieces being set out there, but you didn't realize it. You were just kind of like, what's happening? What is this? What's going on? And then about that 4th episode, you look back and you go, oh, they were setting this up and that up and this up. Oh, cool. This one, it was a little more like, okay, this is going to be where the villain's coming from. Okay, this is how those characters are developing, what they're doing. And then that end piece is definitely like, oh, there's the from the left field kind of wrench in the whole thing.
I will say the turn for the Winter Soldier definitely made you feel a lot of things. A lot of that little reveal was very sad, very heartbreaking. Interested to see how they portray how they fold that. But we've got a long way to go. How many episodes? Did you know how many episodes of the series is going to be? WandaVision was 9.
I think it's similar. I think it's going to be up there around 9. It's going to take us all the way to the beginning of June when we get Loki. So it's got a
another twist. But yes, go check that out on Disney Plus. But that is not why you are here today. Maybe you are here just for that, and then you tune out. But we're here.
Or you tuned out after JB whispered in your ear, and you're like, "Oh, I can't do this."
That too. Maybe
that's where I stopped listening.
Eddie is now rejoining the podcast right now. So if you have been listening, we are here to continue walking through 1994. I believe this is probably our last film in 1994. Is it? Yes. It is The Santa Claus.
Cue the Disney sound effect.
Okay, IMDb for The Santa Claus.
Let's see how it does. Does it deliver?
When a man inadvertently makes Santa Claus, no, just Santa, fall off of his roof on Christmas Eve, not Santa's roof, his own roof, he finds himself magically recruited to take his place. That's it. That's the money right there. That's all we needed to know. I'm in.
Down the middle. Straight down the middle.
We didn't need anything else superfluous. We did superfluous. It tells you exactly what you needed to know. So,
and I appreciate that they gave us that it was inadvertent, right? That this was, he did not purposefully kill Santa Claus.
If you were going to show people how to write an IMDb description that isn't special, isn't like hitting a home run, this is the formula. This is it. This is what I would tell people to look at. Anyways, Eddie, was this a classic in your home? Was this a first time watch for you?
This is a classic in our home. I was trying to think about this as we were watching it. I don't think that this is a every year we have to watch the Santa Claus.
This isn't Home Alone.
Or it's not Christmas. Yes, every year we have to watch Home Alone. We have to watch White Christmas, kind of movies like that. This, though, does... I would say we would go, oh, we didn't watch the Santa Claus last year. We've got to make sure we watched it this year. That it's frequent enough that it warrants that comment. But it is one that we grew up watching and one that we enjoy. I remember having the VHS tape, which I will bring up something that I noticed, and I looked up on IMDb that has an interesting story of the discrepancy between growing up watching the VHS and now some changes.
Oh, you found a change that they've made.
Well, a very interesting thing occurred, but we will save that for later, just to tease everybody to keep listening. So yes, it was a very nostalgic watch because it was one that we grew up watching a lot. How about you guys?
Yeah, this was one that we had watched several times. I think this is probably one of because we didn't watch Home Alone as much. That has been a newer part of my family, my immediate family here. We've started doing a lot more of that, but the Santa Claus is one that was introduced a while when I was younger, and it was a good one that we kept on watching. I don't know that it was an every year thing, but a lot of good memories from watching this film. And this is Tim Allen at peak Tim Allen from, and there's actually a couple nods to his sitcom.
Did you guys watch Home Improvement? Was that something? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was huge. That was TGIF, right? That was part of the TGIF programming. Yeah, he does it. He does a little bit of his ho 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 gruff voice mixture with the ho 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 in this. So I appreciated that. Also, there was a moment where he's about to go down the chimney, and he said something to the effect of, I hope that whoever lives here is a tailor. And it just made me wonder, is this a reference to Jonathan Taylor Thomas, JTT?
Or Tim the Toolman Taylor. That was the last name of the family in Home Improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there were some nods. I think there's some winks.
I would agree. That was kind of the big one there that I was wondering. I was like, I bet you he's yeah. No, this really sets off his run of Disney movies. 94, he's in this film. 95 is when we get Toy Story. 97 is when he comes out with Jungle to Jungle, which is another kind of crazy Disney movie that he was in. So he's in, this is when he's really in his prime. Mid and late 90s, he was like your go-to comedy guy.
So rewatching this film, I think I found myself the first third of this movie not really fully engaged with it. Specifically Tim Allen in this, but it kind of did something somewhere around the halfway point, somewhere around the 2/3 point, where I was like, doggone it, it got me. it brought me in. It reeled me in kind of in that last third, especially. I think it was something to do with the fact that his character up at the front isn't totally rotten, isn't the right word, but like we get Bombay in the Mighty Ducks movies. He is just like, in that first film, he is totally against everything. He's trying to live his own life and reluctantly is pulled in. Tim Allen is kind of like the one character of the adult is kind of like, he's kind of playing devil's advocate, but he's kind of like, oh, it could be Santa. Like, what do you think? Like, kind of like, why don't we tell him about Santa? And it's mostly just to dig at Neil the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if Neil said this, well, if Neil said that. So his turn at the end is more of a just like oh, wait, this is real? No, this isn't. Is this really real? So there's some of that. The fact that he wasn't like there wasn't like a reason to really hate him. He was just a stepdad who was kind of late to get around to stuff. He's not that. Is he a good salesman? I don't know. But once he locks in as Santa in that last 2/3, then you're fully bought in. I think there is the tension of losing his son, I think, is really where it turns it on its head when he has to start going to court for his son for the mediations. I think that's where it kind of turned for me.
I find this just to be a fun, clever movie. Like there's just a lot of just clever tropes and lines. And I mean, the title itself is clever, right? That it's the Santa Claus, which that whole kind of sequence of events when that kind of comes, to fruition with him, it's like, okay. I think in rewatching it and going back to it, I enjoy that far more than I did as a kid. That's just kind of like, oh, that's clever. I see what they did there.
Do we want to talk about Neil?
Is he the villain? Because if he's not, who is?
I mean, he basically is as close to a villain in this thing because he's kind of like egging the mom on. Like,
sure.
No, you need to. This isn't okay. He's kind of like backhandedly trying to get Charlie to not believe in Santa. He's kind of like driving things, and she's oh, I don't know. Yeah, we need to do this. Oh, we shouldn't. Is it really that bad? And he's kind of keeping it going. And this brings me to a point, and I think we had just talked about this. How many movie characters that are psychiatrists are actually good in films? Like, you never have, there's very few films that have like the best friend who's also a psychiatrist. It's usually either they're coming in to be that sage wisdom of like, make the character confront the brutal truth. Yeah. Or they're like Neil in this film, where it's like, you don't want to be Neil. If you've also seen, the Adam Sandler and Don Cheadle film, Reign Over Me, you got Roger.
One of your favorites.
Yeah, one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite films. Roger, I think is his name, and he's that. He's saying, you got shrink hands. You're a shrink. I can tell you're a shrink.
I was thinking about that, but I think that is a 90s and aughts thing. Like the psychiatrist was like the butt end of a joke, or going to a therapist or anything in that kind of category was always the butt end of the joke. Yep. And I don't think that would be the case anymore. Like, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but like, I think we finally come around and realize like, no, like mental health is a legitimate, thing. We need to be a little bit more careful about that. Where in the 90s and aughts, it was much more of like, toughen up. Do you really need somebody to go tell you your feelings to? Which is hard because you get a character like Neil who is kind of overuses it, right? Like leans into it. We were talking about whispering. I think that's what drives me nuts is his like little therapist voice, when he kind of like,
There's
No,
a nice
you know.
little one of Charlie's last lines near the end when he says, "It's okay, Neil. You're just denying your inner child." I
Yes,
loved that turn. There was a film. So even in the film that I talked about with Don the Reign Over Me, you have Liv Tyler's character, which I can't remember if she's technically. I think she might just be a therapist. I don't know if she's a psychiatrist. Which is different. So she is a main character that's like rooting with, but she's also trying to get him to deal with this stuff. But then there was another film that made me think of it, and you'll appreciate this. Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Now that's a person that I don't know if he's technically a psychiatrist in here, but
he's a professor. Yeah, yes and no, but yeah,
he's kind of acting in that role. That would be one of the few times where it's like he is a good person, that he's the best. He's the best friend. So
that is, side note, one of the greatest performances in film ever. Period.
Cinema history.
Yeah,
on the Pantheon. Yep.
Yeah. So, so Neil, possibly the
secret villain.
The secret villain. I think generally, though, it's circumstantial, right, of everything that's going on, which I think is part of the lighthearted, fun humor, kind of interesting part of the whole movie, right, of his slow transformation over the year into becoming Santa Claus. You've got the weight gain and trying to figure out all of that.
Oh, the cringe-worthy, that whole in sweatsuit conference room.
Yes, when they're pitching Santa Claus in the tank and he just kind of loses it in a good way.
And the Jeopardy music is going as he's slowly eating all the ice cream and stuff like that. Oh, it was even harder to watch now as an adult, just thinking, what would I do in that situation if a team member came in and they were in sweatpants and had obviously gained weight, and he's like, bee sting.
Like a bee sting.
Yeah.
Really? Sure that was a bee sting? Oh, no. I remember as a kid, and even now, that whole, he just finishes shaving and dyeing his hair, and it's like, poof, it comes all back and goes like, oh.
I've gained 40 pounds in a week.
And he's like, a little weight? You think this is a little weight? And he taps himself.
You can tell that this movie influenced the future, not Bruce Almighty, but the follow-up, Evan Almighty. Similar things happened with Steve Carell as he's becoming Moses. The beard is growing out and the animals are just following. There's definitely some shades of that, of the Santa Claus in that film.
What did you think of the sequences in the North Pole? I remember as a kid that kind of always being one of my favorite segments of the movie, and kind of seeing kind of a modern, more technological look at the North Pole. I thought that was always kind of cool.
Yeah, that's always the fun stuff. The stuff you remember as a kid, him interacting with Bernard and all the people, and when he said, what if I don't believe? And it gets really quiet in there for a second.
Yeah.
All the technology on the second trip at the very end, with the coffee maker and everything like that.
Cocoa maker.
The cocoa maker. And
Yes.
the cookie dispenser.
Yes. Oh, the cookie dispenser as your CD player. I was like, I love it. I loved the elves, the tactical team that flies in.
ELFS.
Yeah, ELFS. And tinsel. It's more than just a decoration. And then there's the drunk guy in the cell next to him. Hey, can I get some of that tinsel? Which I think that moment again, I love these 90 comedies that just have these fun little one-liners here and there.
Eddie,
and
don't try this out without elf supervision.
Yes, and it's Tim Allen at some of his finest, right? Just kind of these one-liners, these zingers that are so much fun. Did you write any down? Because I had a few that I had written down that I liked so much.
Some of the cringeworthy things were just from that the Bring Your Parent to School Day, career day. We don't say elves; they're little people. It's just like too far. Oh, when they open up the parent day, and the kids are remember, kids. There's nothing worse than third-degree burns. Okay, moving on to the next one. And even like Neil, when he's like, "May I speak, please? I am a doctor. You're not a real doctor."
He's a liars. Oh yeah. I love the moment, the first or second house that he goes in towards the beginning of the movie, and the little girl's on the couch, and she's like, "Why didn't you eat any of the cookies?" And he's like, "Because Santa is watching his saturated fats."
I'm lactose intolerant.
And then come back around the year later. Why does this milk taste so chalky?
One of the first moments I actually started laughing at, I think started to turn me a little bit, was when they go to Denny's. And
well, even getting out of the car, right? Where who doesn't love Denny's? It's an American institution. I quote that line every time I walk into a Denny's, which isn't that frequent, I got to say. But every time I do, I'm like, Denny's, it's an American institution.
When he says, "Hey, are you with the whatever party?" and he's like, "No, I burned the turkey." Okay, this way. Come over there, and you just see all the dads, and he just looked over and goes, "Burn the turkey," and the guy holds up his hand and it's bandaged.
I love
it's like enough said.
And this is where I love Tim Allen. He just has that ability to deliver such a simple line, and it sells the beat of it so well. And they sit down at that table, and he's like, "You know what would be delicious?" And he really, a nice, cool glass of seasonal eggnog. And the way he just kind of delivers all of that, and then you get the deadpan, "I don't like eggnog. We're out of it." There's just that rhythm and beat of that delivery I love so much. It's hilarious.
And then he's so sad when he's like, "I'll take chocolate milk. We're out of chocolate." I'll take regular milk.
And then he says, "But they have hot apple pie." And then from the distance you hear say, "Yes, we do." Oh, so many of those lines I love. The other one is when they are flying off after his kind of first night as Santa Claus or whatever, and he says, "And to all, a good night." And then he says, "And when I wake up, I'm getting a CAT scan." That was a line that I heard and knew in this watching, where I'm like, "Oh, that's good."
I definitely did not get that as a kid. I probably would have maybe repeated it, not knowing what it meant, but now I understand.
So the line that I heard that I didn't hear in this watching, and then as I was doing research on all of this, I found a very interesting story.
Oh, do tell.
So in the original release and in the original VHS, there's this moment when the mom is giving, Charlie's going to stay the night, and she's kind of going through, and she hands him a piece of paper and says, here's my parents' phone number. And Scott Calvin, Tim Allen's character, holds up the piece of paper and he goes, 1-800-SPANK-ME. I know that number. And it's, a funny line or whatever. Apparently, that was an actual phone number for like a sex hotline. And kids in the 90s called it, not realizing all of this, and racked up huge phone bills and got into all sorts of trouble. And Disney, of course, heard an earful of knowing like, oh, this is not something you want. And so they purged it from all other copies, and you didn't hear it in the Disney Plus version of it.
That's funny. Because I kind of remember that quote from the film. It's in the back recesses of my mind. It's like, that was a real line, wasn't it? That's funny.
So that was an interesting little one-liner that did not make it. Did not
make the cut to make the final cut. Yes, I loved the ELFS, the I just loved all of their. I'd forgotten about the ELFS, about the guys coming in. Don't try this without elf supervision. Those are just some of the magical moments from it, where they kind of soar in with their jetpacks and stuff like that. Yeah.
So, do you think this movie would have been as good if you didn't have Tim Allen as the central character?
No. As much as I just don't know who. I mean, I guess Will Ferrell could have pulled this off. Someone else could have pulled this off, I think. But it would.
Do you think, like, if you would have put, like, let's go with Toy Story here. What if you had Tom Hanks as the central character? Do you think it would have been? Does the story and the cleverness of the story hold its own, or do you need that kind of snappy one-liner actor in there?
Well, Tim Allen makes it the type of film that it is because that's his persona. He's taking his Tim the Toolman Taylor persona and just putting it over into his everyman performance. He's putting that into this film. So to say another actor isn't going to necessarily play it the same way. So,
little known fact, I have actually met Tim Allen.
Oh. You can just name drop here.
I know. I was at the Apple store on the Magnificent Mile in Chicago.
Of course, it was in Chicago.
Apple TV just came out. I remember this, and I was playing Apple TV in the Apple store, and I was watching the trailer for Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Because what else are you going to test out?
Yeah,
an amazing big screen and Apple TV with. And so I'm like maybe 10 seconds into the trailer or whatever, and I feel somebody walk up right next to me, shoulder to shoulder, and start watching it with me, right? They were just kind of checking it out or whatever. And I just kind of like glanced over the corner of my eye and I'm like, oh crap, that's Tim Allen. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And just as like I'm like realizing all of this, and I kind of like turn, head nod, like he knows I know who he is. Yep. And I'm like, just play it cool. Don't be any, crazy about it.
Play cool.
They like walk up and they're like, okay, Mr. Allen, we have your order together. And he was like, oh, okay, do you have this? And he starts like going through everything. And I'm like, oh, it's Buzz Lightyear. Oh, yes.
Do you think he's more well known? What do you think he's most well known for in the hierarchy of his stuff?
Because easy. The Pure Michigan ads.
The Pure Michigan. Not what I thought you were going to say.
I just like randomly ran into some people who were from Michigan and they were like telling me everything. And they're like, oh yeah, Michigan, it's a wonderful place to go camping and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Tim Allen tells me about it all the time.
See, we don't get Pure Michigan ads down here.
For those of you who don't live in Indiana, we on our radio, on all sorts of stuff, we get inundated with Michigan tourism ads. And Tim Allen is a longtime resident of Michigan and does all of their ads. And they're moving. Okay. They really are. Cause it's like, do you long for the simple times on crystal waters, floating your summers away? And it's just like, yes, I do long for that time. I didn't know I wanted to go to Michigan. Now, yeah, Pure Michigan is the tagline. Pure Michigan. And it's been running for decades now. But he is the voice of Michigan.
Speaking of whispering.
Stop. Why are you doing that?
Okay, Eddie. Are we at the point where we can rate this thing? Or do you still have a hit list of stuff? I've kind of reached the end of mine.
We haven't addressed sequels, and I don't think we will hit them later on.
They're not on our list?
The first one, I think, does, but the second one wouldn't be. We end at 2005.
Santa Claus 2 is on there, right? Like, we're going to hit that one next, right? Or at some point?
On down the line.
Down the line?
We will hold that for future. It did create 2 sequels.
So, I only remember the second one, really.
Yeah, me too. So rating. What are you going to rate this?
I'm going to give it a 2. It took me.
Whoa,
Yeah, I know,
that
I'm sorry.
low?
Because I wasn't into it, and then it brought me around. But if you got to work that hard to get my rating, like, I don't know that I'm like excited to watch this again. I was like, oh, that was better than it kind of started off slow, and then it got better, and there was some nostalgia in there, but it's hard to give it like more than that for me. I'm not like jumping to watch this again.
I would probably give it a 3.5.
Okay. Like, I hate that. That's fine.
Two just seems way too low. Way too low.
I'm sorry.
It's a solid. Here's what I would say. It is a solid Christmas movie, right? Christmas movies kind of have this other category where it's like, okay, you hit me in the warm and fuzzy. We can look over a few kind of slow spots or not the best, but it's a good solid Christmas movie. So that's where it's like definitely 3.5.
Okay, I'll give you that. I would say, what if
you seem suspicious?
Well, we're at the point of what if the parents were actually involved, but the parent was involved the whole time. So
the whole time.
I don't know what, maybe if if they didn't get divorced, would that have changed the scenario? Would she be Mrs. Claus? There's a little bit unleft, but.
Do you think you would have rated it higher if we would have actually watched this movie during the Christmas season?
Probably.
If you had the Christmas tree up.
I was on a Christmas high this year. I was on a big Christmas high this year. So yeah,
I would have
given it a lot. I would have given it some extra stars just for a good measure. It wouldn't have gotten up to a 4. It probably wouldn't have gotten up to 4, but I probably would have been up in the 3.5 range.
So you're saying I've been right all along.
If you're living in Christmas world year round, then yes, you would have been right.
Oh, no.
Any dad tips for this?
Dad tips. Yeah. This shows why you need to be a little careful about taking your kids to work. That is a really fun thing Lewis is starting to do in the mornings. When I'm getting ready to head out for the office, he will go get his shoes and sit next to me and be like, I go to work too, and starts putting on his shoes.
That's so sad. It's cute, but also sad because then you're gonna break his heart.
I know, because then I'm like, no, buddy, you can't go with me. So,
well, for sure, beware of Neils in the world and how they try to dash your children's hearts,
hopes and dreams,
all of them. Beware of Neils.
But yes, so, but next week we continue on with another film here as we keep marching forward. We hit a new year. We go into 1995.
Finally, I feel like we've been here for a year.
And that's big, right? We are halfway through the 90s.
Yep.
It's almost halfway. I guess, right? You would have to be like when we finish 95?
The Disney decade.
But the film we're going to look at next week is one of my comedy favorites from the 90s, and that would be Heavyweights.
Heavyweights. I'm so excited to rewatch that one. I haven't rewatched that in a long time.
There are some surprising actors that I'm sure will come up in our discussion where you're like, what? He's in this?
What? He's in that?
Yeah. So
I would agree.
In the meantime,
wherever you get podcasts, wherever you're listening to us, please leave a review and rate
5
us.
stars only.
5 stars only. And please subscribe. We would love to get the subscriber count up so we can expand the reach of this podcast. But thank you so much for watching again, and we will please tune in next week.